Hello, my name is Kit Cabello, and this is an exclusive interview here at Hardlands Media. We are actually at a undisclosed location. Just kidding, it's the Four Seasons here in the city of Chicago, and we're joined here with none other than the great Jimmy Dore, Chicago's very own. Jimmy, thank you so much.
Hey, good to see you, buddy.
So, a lot has changed since the last we spoke to you. You have a growing YouTube channel. You're touring across the country. So, while you're on tour, what are some of the things that you've seen in regards to what's happening in America, and how have people responded to your show, both live and also viewing on social media?
Oh boy, that's a lot to unpack there. Let's back it up.
Okay, no problem.
Anyway, it was the thing about the touring is it's fun, right? So that's why I like doing it. And this is kind of our anniversary for my wife and I, right? So that's why it's like a special, so it makes it extra special to be in Chicago, to be able to play Thalia Hall, be able to celebrate our anniversary. So I got to, take her out to extra special dinner, stuff like that. We go to our favorite Italian restaurant, and so it's it's a fun celebration. I forget what your question was, but anyway, as I travel around, it's the same message, right? It's like the people who are ruling us are out of touch, right? I mean, Nancy Pelosi's 100 millionaire, and she got that way not by serving the people's interest.
Right.
And so it wasn't me who said. I think Truman said there's only the only kind of people get rich while in government are crooks. Mm-hmm. Well, that's just par for the course now, right? Yeah, they all get rich while they're in government, and right. Barack Obama's he's joining the 100 millionaire club, and his first couple of speeches when he left the presidency was for banks and make it at 400,000 a clip. Anyway, so that's the thing. But there's no opposition party, right? The opposition party is a part of the establishment. They are the elite. That's who they represent, and that's the problem. And that's why they can institute a healthcare plan while they have complete control of government, a healthcare plan that leaves out 30 million people, and they can pat themselves on the back for it. Like, what are you kidding me? The rest of the world figured this stuff out decades ago, and you guys come up with a plan that leaves out automatically 30 million people, and you're all from Harvard, and you're patting yourselves on the back? A dumb guy like me can see what the solution to that thing is, but it's, again, that you can't have the solution because of corruption, right? That's why we don't have it, right? Because the Democrats, when they had control of government, they're corrupt. And they had to do the bidding of Wall Street and the insurance companies, right? And that's exactly what they did. And they made the banks bigger, and they made the insurance companies richer and the big pharma richer. And they took us from 2 wars to 7. And now we're left with 80% of the country living paycheck to paycheck. And Trump has the most of his base thinking it's because of immigrants, mm-hmm. right? And it's I knew it had to be somebody with no money and no power that was responsible for the economy. I knew it was. God damn! If there was only a way that billionaires could insulate themselves from the penniless, it would be. Oof! It's got to be. Anyway, so that's what's happening. And it's not stopping, right? We have again the media. It's so funny. Most of my friends, in comedy and in Los Angeles, that turn on MSNBC and they think they're getting the lefty perspective, instead of what they're actually getting is people who are beards for an evil corporation that is part of this, as Bill Hicks used to call it, a capitalist gangbang, right? And if you tell a truth on MSNBC that, say, for instance, is the truth about a war, they'll fire you like they did with Phil Donahue, Jesse Ventura, and Ashley Banfield. And even if you cover Bernie Sanders, they'll fire you like they did Ed Schultz. That's what they did it for. And so they're not, and people think they're getting the Miami debates. I went to the Miami debates, and I went and I saw who they had back in the studio, like in New York, mm-hmm. And it was Nicole Wallace. She was anchoring, right, and she was doing the Chuck Schumer, and who used to be the communications director with the Bush White House. She's hosting on the Lefty Network, and who's she interviewing and getting his reaction? She's interviewing Donnie Deutsch, who was born into a millionaire. His dad started an advertising firm. He's been a millionaire all his life. And he was here to give you the message that the issues don't matter in this election.
Right, but then he also went on to say that he would also consider supporting Trump until he was stopped by good old Joe.
Right,
just right there in the middle. He was that close to repeating the truth.
Yeah, he said if they nominate a socialist, he said I'm going to vote for Donald Trump.
Then he was stopped by Joe.
And then Joe Biden said, "No, you wouldn't.
Joe Biden.
You can't say that, Donnie, because that's our whole thing. We can't go around saying we're going to vote for Trump. We can't. The guy, you can't. That's what we do in private." And so, and I can't believe that more people can't see through it, because it's not that hard to see through. Why is it that, just in my lifetime, every war has been supported by the front page of the New York Times and the Washington Post and every major media? They still do it now with Trump, even though it's Trump, who they say is a madman working for another country, an adversary. He's a Manchurian candidate who can't be trusted with the button. But I don't know, this thing in Iran, I think he's got to do something. I don't know. And he certainly shouldn't. And they go, oh, he's buddying up to dictators in North Korea. What do you want him to do? What do you want him to do? You don't want him to have peace in North Korea, or you want him to start a war?
Right.
It's funny that Fox News used to say the same things about Barack Obama that now the left is saying about. It's just they're attacking Trump from the right. Mm-hmm. Like, people don't see that. So anyway, it's just amazing to me that more people don't see it. But I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that we're a warmongering nation, mm-hmm. and that our government is completely captured. We don't have a democracy. We have an oligarchy, and that's proven. That's not me making that up. Right. That's been proven by the Princeton study, right? That if you're in the 80% of earners or lower, what you care for, what you think is nothing, doesn't matter. Never gets reflected in legislation. Right. Ever. But the upper 10%, it correlates perfectly. Like, so if 10% of the upper 10% want something, 10% of the times it gets into legislation. If half of the upper 10% want something, 50% of the time it'll become legislation. So that was proven. That's not me. That's Smarty Pants. I'm just, again, I'm literally just a jagoff nightclub comedian, and the fact that I can see through this stuff, it's just kind of, I think that's what gets me. Kind of presses my anger button on stage.
Oh, well, hang on for this question, because I'm about to press your anger a little bit more. So it's clear that the DNC establishment and corporate media are still putting all their weight on the scale for neoliberal candidates and attack progressive candidates like Representative Tulsi Gabbard and Senator Bernie Sanders. So the thing is, are voters engaged enough to really tell that there's clear manipulation? And can corporate media be as successful as it was during the 2016 election fraud cover-up? And what I mean by successful is basically, yeah, there was election fraud, but we're still going to turn a blind eye and no one's going to do a thing about it.
Yeah, I don't see how anything fundamentally changed. There isn't an opposition party right now. Nancy Pelosi is proving that, right? So what's the point of having a majority in the House? What is the point of having that if you're not going to ever use it? Well, she just completely caved. By the way, that term, Nancy Pelosi caved on that border bill, came from the USA Today. That didn't come from me or some lefty out there. They're saying she caved to Mitch McConnell. So what's the point of everybody voting? You got to vote blue. Everybody got to. And what is the point of that if you're just going to go along anyway? Look at how the Democrats are the enablers of the Republicans' agenda, right? Chuck Schumer fast-tracked their judges. That was one of the reasons they said you had to vote for Hillary, because of the judicial branch. They're going to unpack the courts, and Chuck Schumer's fast-tracking them over and over and over. Whereas the Republicans stymied Barack Obama's appointments at every turn. They participated in further deregulation of Wall Street under Trump. The Democrats did that. Now she just rolled over and caved. They caved over on DACA, and now they're caving in on this got nothing. Right. She didn't even negotiate. She just was, whatever Mitch McConnell passes, we're going to pass.
Or that time when she was screaming on top of the roof saying that Trump is a threat to national security, she's surveilling us, and then what happens? She votes in favor, Nancy Pelosi votes in favor of increasing the national security policy.
That's right.
So, that's
the same thing. Like Barack Obama, when he, on his way out of office, he didn't try to undo all that stuff all the powers they gave to the president because Trump was coming in. He expanded the security state more and spying powers more.
Mm-hmm. So then let's actually just again focus a little bit more on the election fraud of 2016. It's still fresh in a lot of progressive minds, and there's a concern that it could very well happen again. Maybe more people are aware of it, but there is somebody we do have to address, and that's Senator Bernie Sanders. And for the most part, he has been silent about the election fraud, especially what happened in 2016. And corporate media is still attacking him. They're still attacking Representative Tulsi Gabbard. And so, why do you think Bernie Sanders has still remained? I mean, I asked you this before, but I mean, even now, he's still silent about, people questioning about what happened during 2016, and even challenging the actions of the DNC. Why is he still silent about the election fraud?
I don't know. I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish I'd like to ask him. I don't know. People don't ask him that question. Who do get to ask him questions? So that would be. I wish I knew. It is disappointing. Even to the point where Elizabeth Warren, I remember her being interviewed on MSNBC, and they asked her, or maybe it was CNN, and they asked her, do you think that the primary election was rigged? And she said yes. Like, that's a famous clip. That's Elizabeth Warren. And then of course she had to walk it back.
Right.
But that was her honest answer. That was her first honest reaction. And even Donna Brazile had to walk stuff back from her book. So that's what happens. So anyway, I have that video that I played before the show last night, right? Where I just happened to go to Las Vegas to cover the caucus. I had been to Iowa earlier. I'd been to those, and that was wild. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to go. So I went to the Paris Hotel one. So they had that was a caucus site. I just picked it at random. And it was the most unbelievably, bizarrely, poorly managed on purpose. Mm-hmm. It seemed like, right?
Or maybe that's just how they run things.
The whole way it's set up is it's a guy literally counting a guy. And he writes a number on his hand. I showed you that.
What could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong?
And then the ballots flying out of his hand everywhere. He forgot to, and they were letting people register after. They let them participate who weren't ready. It was like all kinds of crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. So chaos favors the establishment. Right. So that's why it's like that.
Well, speaking of chaos, I mean,
and now they're going to let them vote by phone.
Well, no. Speaking of chaos, now there's like a large field.
If you to vote for the vote for Joe Biden, press 1. To vote for Tulsi Gabbard, please hang up. If you're trying to vote for Bernie Sanders, please call back later and try the number again.
So right now, because you mentioned chaos, because there is a large field of Democratic candidates. There's a lot of establishment candidates that are in the field, and it seems that the DNC is just throwing whoever they can against the wall that can stick and possibly beat Bernie Sanders. Is this overall strategy working? Because the first they tried out was Kamala Harris, then Cory Booker, then Beto O'Rourke, then Pete Buttigieg, and as soon as Biden in the race, and then when he had his epic fail during the debates, Kamala Harris starts surging, and so does Elizabeth Warren. Is this strategy working in regards to who the DNC establishment will pick? I mean, can one of these candidates potentially challenge Bernie Sanders? Are voters aware of this?
I mean, we won't know until the first primaries, I guess, if it's working. But when this was announced that they weren't going to have superdelegates participate in the first round of voting, like that was the concession. Like, just get rid of superdelegates. It's just so crazy. Anyway, so when this was, I was like, oh, so they're just going to flood the field and push it to I didn't realize it was going to be 20 people. I thought it would be like a couple, and they would get them to, it was Kamala, Elizabeth Warren, and then get it, and Bernie, and get it pushed to a second ballot, and then the superdelegates will choose. And they're like, but you guys, they'll be like, you agreed to these rules. We had the reconciliation. We did it. This are your rules that you agreed to. How could you complain now? You have to abide by the rule. We would abide by them if it was Bernie. That's what they'll say. But if it's Bernie, they won't abide by the rules. Anyway, it's a one-way street. Just like, guys like Donnie Deutsch admit on camera. He admitted that if it's a socialist in his eyes, which means Bernie Sanders or or Elizabeth Warren, I guess. Because MSNBC is on board with Elizabeth Warren, man. They're all about Elizabeth Warren. So doesn't that make you? What does that make you think?
Well, it looks like they're trying to really play the field and do divide and conquer. I mean, if anything, there's constantly negative articles on Representative Tulsi Gabbard, on Senator Bernie Sanders, and it seems like to be par for the course for the establishment media. It's nothing we haven't seen in 2016. It's just 2020. I think a lot of people see it now, but there is something that perhaps progressives should think about while it is early on. If there is election fraud and the DNC establishment picks a corporate Democrat, what should progressives do? What is the plan?
I have no idea. I don't know. What do you think they should do?
Well, I mean,
I voted for Jill Stein, and people act like I'm a traitor to the country. Mm-hmm. I mean, I thought that it would be a good idea to have a progressive party that actually could get to 5% in the polls, so they could get matching funds, so they could get in the debate, so they could have, they could pull the Democrats left. So now you got to get these voters. So that's the crazy thing. Right, voter outreach is supposed to be about offering people something. Like, hell, we have to get these people who won't vote for corporate warmongers to vote for us. What are we going to give them? Let's give them something. That's not what they did in 2016. They went, vote for us or you're a bad person. What? Yeah, because Trump's worse. Like that, and it just, I couldn't participate in that. There's George Orwell has a quote that those who vote for criminals, I'm going to butcher it, but something that are not victims but accomplices, right? So you vote for a corporatist warmonger and they screw you over harder and they start more wars and they then you enabled it. So at some point, and they're already doing it. I mean, that's what when he says this when Donnie Deutsch and everyone else says that this election isn't about issues, they're doing it again. It's like, why isn't it? Of course, that's how you get people to vote. You fucking offer them something. Like it's like that's how corrupt I think the system is, that they're pretending that they don't even know how they're trying to pretend politics works by, you're a bad person if you don't vote for me. Like, when did that become a way to get a fucking vote? The way to get a vote is you give people something. You offer them something. Right. You offer them a program that can help them make their life better. Whether it be economic, whether it be with a government service, whether it be investing money in their neighborhood, whatever it is, that's how you get people to vote for them. But all that, Hillary Clinton ran around calling people voting for Donald Trump a deplorable, and you're a bad person, and she was offering them no change. We'll never, healthcare plan, it'll never come to pass. You ain't getting what the rest of the world has. You're surprised people in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, didn't come out and vote for her? Mm-hmm. So they're still doing it. That's my point. I don't know. I wish I was smart enough. The unions got together 2 years ago. I think it was in 2017. The AFL-CIO, even the Randy Weingarten from the teachers union. And they have like an annual meeting. I didn't know about this, but I read about this article. And, of course, it wasn't in a mainstream legacy news. It was in some kind of, it might even have been an online from the union. I forget, but it was like a source like that. Anyway, the story was that they all decided that, we've been backing the Democrats for decades now, and we get nothing. We've gotten nothing in return. And so we have to come to grips with that. We can't stop. We have to start a third party. And even in the article, Randy Weingarten was all on board for it. And I was just like, wow, I bet this happens then. And then nothing. And then I heard nothing. And then I know Nick Brana, who worked on Bernie's 2016 campaign, and then he started the Draft Bernie, and now he's a movement for a People's Party. He's working with the unions, but I don't know what's happening with it. It's obviously not happening. Mm-hmm. They haven't slated candidates, whatever. So I don't know what, Nick's a good guy, and I'm real, glad he's doing the work he's doing. But, there's the Justice Democrats, right? So they're the progressives inside the party trying to change it from inside. And And 95 people did vote against that bill. So that's 40% of the caucus. I mean, Nancy Pelosi had to go get Republican votes to pass that, right? So what is the goddamn point of voting? Like, that's the thing, when they all supported Nancy Pelosi as speaker, and people said, well, there was nobody to her left running, and if it wasn't her, it was going to be someone more conservative. I don't know, why didn't someone challenge her to the left? I don't understand. They challenged her to the right, and guess what? She moved a little to the right. She conceded for their vote. Well, challenge her to the left. Get her to come. So I thought the point of supporting the Green Party was to get that on a national scale. Like, if everybody who voted their conscience, because that's what they said, actually did, they would have had to fucking vote. Right. So it's just enough. If the whole thing, if you just, you get it to a point where you get a third party over 5%, so they get matching funds, and now the Democrats have to reach out to them. They don't have to. They're glad to lose to Donald Trump. If the alternative is a progressive winning, just like Donnie Joyce said, he let the secret out of the bag. So that's where we are. So that's what, and I can't believe that that's not like more of a, I'm not a leader. I can't believe there isn't a leader like doing that. Like, I thought Bernie would do that, and he would run third party at this time or immediately after start working on a progressive party the Democrats literally, and it's not just on the presidential election that they, rig it. It's at every level. Like, just at the delegate level in California, it's all like they have super delegates on the state level. Twice the progressives turned out, and we thought in California had taken over the party, and it didn't happen. It didn't. The last guy who was the chairman of the party, Baumer, was a pharmaceutical lobbyist, but the guy now, at least he's a union leader. So
there is a chance.
Yeah.
So now, looking at one candidate in particular for this election, Tulsi Gabbard in 2016 stepped down from the DNC and supported Bernie Sanders. And since entering the race, the establishment media has constantly smeared her by using, disproven and debunked talking points. So why has her campaign got a lot of negative attention when, in fact, her message on foreign policy, climate change, healthcare, and other progressive issues is something that many Americans are willing to listen to? It just seems like she's always constantly being smeared and put down constantly.
Yeah, because and if you notice, it's mostly NBC is the worst. They're the worst offenders, right? So they're the ones
New
who
York Magazine, of course, that did a really horrible article on her childhood, I guess, or something.
I didn't see that, but NBC News did that story when she announced that she was running. The story they ran was that Russian bots are supporting Tulsi on Twitter and what have you, and they referred to the study by the New Knowledge that what do they call it? That cyber organization? I don't know what, a security organization, New Knowledge,
right?
And they were proven to be inventing fake Russian bots and attributing them to Roy Moore in that Alabama election. They got caught. New York Times even reported. It was even in the New York Times, this story.
One of the rare moments where they do journalism.
Yeah. So, and Facebook actually suspended the guy who was the co-founder of it, his Facebook page, because he did this. NBC still uses them as a credible source to smear. The people got caught. They don't go, by the way, our source got caught inventing fake Russian bots and got his own Facebook. But anyway, they don't tell you that. They just go right out and smear Tulsi Gabbard. And maybe it's because they're funded by the military-industrial complex, right? Maybe because Chuck Todd on his news show does a segment literally sponsored by Boeing. They're doing it again. So I'm watching CBS News about the Iran. Trump wants to start a war in Iran, or maybe he doesn't. Maybe it's just Bolton and those guys around him, right?
Well, he surrounded himself with a lot of war hawks from the Bush administration.
Yeah, he seems to have really capitulated. Like he's gonna. like what Bill Benny said is coming to fruition, that they really are. What Chuck Schumer said, don't mess with what Chuck Schumer said about Donald Trump, don't mess with the intelligence community because they have 6 ways to Sunday to mess with you back. So they've been messing with him back pretty hard, right? The dossier, totally. So this whole Russiagate, the whole thing, I mean, that's them fucking sticking it to him and like making his life hell. And it's like, so then, I mean, why would a guy who ran as a non-interventionist surround himself with guys like Bull? I mean, and the good thing is that Trump is, in a sense, maybe inept, because he did pick a guy like John Bolton, which everyone then is the suspect of everything he does. So that actually is a positive. It's like a silver lining, is that no one believes anything John Bolton says anymore, right? So everyone's going to be skeptical of wars he tries to, or more people, not everyone,
right?
More people are going to be skeptical of the wars if it's coming from Elliot Abrams and John Bolton. But I'm watching CBS News about the Iran thing, and they bring on their expert. Their expert going to give you the opinion of what's happening with the Iran and the conflict, he's a retired admiral. That's all they tell you. So I look up the guy. The guy just got elected to the board of Raytheon, and they don't tell you that. Like, that's journalistic malpractice, and that's standard practice.
Well, that's what happens when you have media that's controlled by corporations, for 6 major corporations.
Right.
So, I mean, and we could thank Bill Clinton for the 1996 Telecom Act.
Yeah.
It's never gone wrong for us. I mean, it's working just fine.
Deregulated. Let the capitalists run everything unfettered, and the market seeks it, said it fills all needs, and be perfect utopia.
Right. So when Tulsi Gabbard was interviewed by you and Glenn Greenwald and Joe Rogan and Nico House, Kim Iverson, and other independent outlets, we see a different perspective than what we see from corporate media in regards to covering Tulsi Gabbard. And she's been able to get a lot of support from various supporters from different political backgrounds and has like a large social media following. So I guess from this perspective, because you talk about how candidates need to go out there and earn people's vote, specifically even going on to the general election, why is it that at her candidacy in particular, she's able to really build a large coalition of different people of different backgrounds? Because I mean, it seems like she's really speaking about a message that's hitting a chord towards not only people on the left, but also people on the right.
I think a lot of people, when confronted with what we're actually doing over, in the Middle East and our war machine, our empire, they are uncomfortable by it. They don't like it. Right. And she speaks to it directly. She doesn't pussyfoot around, and she says right out that we have to end these regime change wars. Mm-hmm. And she calls out Saudi Arabia. Right? Like, people don't do that.
Even during the debate, I was surprised that she did that. And, like, she actually said the name Saudi Arabia. Well, that's a big no-no in the neoliberal system.
People... so I think that's why she resonates with people. And she has incredible dignity, even when she's being smeared to her face. Right. She has unbelievable... And I think it resonates with people. People... I think she's unbought. She doesn't take the corporate money. She's a soldier still, and she's against the war. So she's got credibility, right? And that's why she gets smeared the hardest, because she scares the hell out of the military-industrial complex the most, right? It's a money machine. Think about how much money we're spending on war, right? So even at the height of the Iraq War, we were spending $500 billion on the war machine. Now we're spending over $700 billion. That's a 40% increase. I mean, that's an amazing amount of. You can end homelessness for $20 billion. You can send everybody to free college, or everybody to college for $60 to $80 billion a year. So you could end homelessness, send everybody to college, and then you'd still have $100 billion left over. That's just the increase that went to the military that nobody discussed. There's never a debate about should we increase. It just happens. And nobody says how you're going to pay for it, and let's get a tax to pay for this or cut this to pay. That is, boom. It is exactly what Stephanie Kelton says with the modern money theory, whatever they call it, is that they don't, when they write the budget, they write the bill, they don't try to figure out where the money's coming from. Mm-hmm. It shows up. right? It's called debt. They just write it. And so it's amazing that we can do $200 billion more on top of what we were spending at the height of the Iraq War for stuff nobody wants.
Right.
For stuff nobody wants. And if we would have spent that on our country, what a great country, what a much better country this would be. We could eliminate fucking homelessness. We could have everybody going to college and they're not weighed down under a mountain of debt. And guess what? Then they spend money in the economy. So that money doesn't go to a goddamn banker. It goes to someone's dividend that goes to in the economy. Right. You know, it's getting back to FDR and demand side economy. The Democrats never invoke FDR. Barack Obama invoked Ronald Reagan. They never, I'm like, why doesn't he talk about FDR? This is a moment. We had our economy crash. This is when he's supposed to come in and FDR it up, and he didn't. The exact opposite. He was...
You know, he had a majority. He had especially with Obama,
super majority
in the Senate and in the House.
Yeah,
it's something, you know,
filibuster proof. People go, "Oh, Jimmy, it wasn't for 2 years. It was for they had because of Al Franken not being seated and Ted Kennedy dying and stuff like that." But he did have a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate for at least 3 months.
Right.
And what do you think the Republicans would do if they had complete control of government and the public behind them?
Right.
Which Barack had. People were waiting for big changes. They didn't get it. You know, it's like, I think it was Noam Chomsky who said maybe that, you know, in 2008, people voted for hope and change. And in 2016, they voted for hope and change again. Because Trump was offering them change and offering them something. And Hillary Clinton wasn't. She was offering them the status quo. No change.
Right.
So they voted for change with Barack Obama, didn't get it.
Right.
They voted for it again. And the Democrats still, the only thing they're offering you right now is voter shaming. Because they're good. The leadership is going along with the shit. They just, I can't believe there aren't more real progressive leaders.
Right.
You know, it's really, you know, just with climate change alone, it's too late, right?
Well, we are reaching that point of no return. In fact, I think we have gone past the point of no return. But I want to switch gears real quick because myself and Paul DuPont and the rest of the team here at Hardy Lens Media, we're fans of your show, and we know that you've been reading The Management of Savagery. And what we want to ask you is, like, what did you learn from Max Blumenthal's book? Sorry, and what stood out to you?
Well, I haven't. I'm only like 29 pages in right now, so I can't. But he's detailing how Afghanistan and Brzezinski and Carter, how they started it with the Mujahideen, I hope I'm pronouncing, and their strategy to pull Russia in, and how everything blew and just the deceit that and the behind the scenes stuff. Just Afghanistan is mind blowing.
Right.
So again, I'll let me get a little deeper in. You should. I'm sure Max would do an interview if you asked him. He can tell you all. I mean, and my wife is a little further into that book. And she's like, it's mind-blowing what's in that book. Because you think, again, it's like, oh, I thought I knew all this stuff. But there's so much more detail. Like, there's a documentary about the Lewinsky-Clinton affair.
Right.
And it was on the TV, my wife's watching, and she's like, oh, you should watch this. It's interesting. I'm like, I knew everything there's to know. But so I'm like, all right, I'll watch it. And it was fascinating. I didn't know, the surface level. I didn't know. So it's always amazing when you think you know something, and that's coming from a dumb guy. So I'm always checking myself.
Well, don't sell yourself too short, because, like, let's, for example, during the high point of the Russiagate scandal for 2.5 years, corporate media was drumming the beats of Russiagate, and now that the big hype is kind of over, since you were dealing with a lot of pushback from a lot of people, what is really the lasting legacy of Russiagate?
Again, the fact that I could see through it from the get-go.
You weren't the only one. There were a lot of other people.
Right, but the fact that I can see through it, I'm just like, well, I mean, So Ron Placone on my show also saw through it, and he would say, like, I hate Trump as much as anybody. But I'm not going to let him steal my critical thinking skills. And again, of course, I mean, how was I, honest to God, how was I able to predict what was going to be in the Mueller report? Me. It's ridiculous. That means it wasn't that hard, right? All I had to do was read what Aaron Matei was writing. All I had to do was listen to what he was saying. All I had to do was listen to what Glenn Greenwald was saying. All I had to do was, you don't have to be smart. All you have to do is have the courage to not go along with herd mentality. Right. And that's what journalism is. It's herd mentality thinking. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's a club I don't ever want to be in. I mean, if that was my profession, journalism, and 99.9% of them just pushed an evidence-free conspiracy theory that red baited the fucking president, and then as soon as it got disproven, they just got on another horse. Fuck it, he obstructed justice. We're gonna do that. Just kept going.
Well, Rachel Maddow has a collective channel.
It's not just her; it's everybody, man. It's most of the people.
So, especially now in this day and age, most Americans
and the people who were skeptical of it on the left did it very quietly.
Right. So,
I mean, except for again, those are a handful of people. Kyle Kalinske was out in front.
Right.
Glenn Greenwald. Who else? Well, of course, Lee Camp. So and Aaron Matei won an award for his meticulous debunking of the evidence-free red-baited conspiracy theory that is Russiagate.
So now if we actually look at another different aspect of, I think, how people view corporate media is that many Americans are consuming their information via online, supporting independent media networks, such as yourself, or Hardlines Media, or Nico House, Tim Black, numerous other independent media sites. But the problem is now, especially on YouTube and Twitter and other forms of social media, a lot of these channels are being threatened, or they're possibly be shut down, banned. You mentioned on your show that a lot of your subscribers have been unsubscribed from your channel. So really, what is the future of independent media, especially in this day and age where one journalist or somebody gets easily offended and then they go after YouTube content creators who specifically want to create independent media?
So that's what happened in 2016, right? So the word went out, you're not allowed to cover Bernie Sanders unless it's negative, right? So that's how the Washington Post writes 16 negative stories in 16 hours or whatever that was. And they fire Ed Schultz because he dared to cover Bernie Sanders. Meanwhile, they're covering Trump's empty podium hour by hour. That literally happened. Mm-hmm. So people went around the mainstream news media and they came to places like YouTube, the Young Turks, that covered Bernie Sanders, and that scared them. They didn't, and they went to Twitter and Facebook and they got their information about Bernie Sanders. So when you're at a rally, the Bernie Sanders supporters are a room full of, a stadium full of people would be chanting CNN sucks.
Right.
And now, and everyone pretends that didn't happen now because it's the Trump voters who are chanting CNN sucks. And they're like, oh, look, they hate journalism. No, progressives don't. They fucking hate you guys. They hate the corporate bought, military industrial complex, fossil fuel funded news media that, amplifies a guy like Jake Tapper who comes out with this, is a fact checker and says that Medicare for all costs more than the system we have right now, with a straight fucking face. And they're going to lose their Facebook page because that's fake news, and that's their stock and trade is fake news. And now people, so they want to, so they're afraid of places like independent places like you, places like our show. They're afraid of independent media on YouTube, no matter what it is, because it's taking away their advertising dollars. And so they're trying to scare the advertisers away and scare people, and they're trying to demonize YouTube just in general. And it's working, I think. Google, which owns YouTube, keeps caving, and they keep changing the algorithms that prioritize independent news. So that scared them. People could go around them and get news, and even about war, right? So I think that's the biggest thing. Like the reason my show was kind of the success of my show is that, I focus more on the war bullshit more than anybody. Like I was out in front debunking Syria. Just ridiculous, crazy.
Or even
It's
the
just,
very fact that Iran supposedly attacked 2 tankers. When
Yes.
in fact, it doesn't add up.
it doesn't. Or Venezuela.
Right.
I had beat CNN three weeks on New York Times by debunking that bullshit CNN story about how it was the government setting the aid on fire. Of course it wasn't. Of course it was the opposition who did that. And Max Blumenthal debunked it in real time. I reported on my show in real time, and it took 3 weeks for the rest of the media to catch up to our story.
Right.
Me. Why is it so really people at MSNBC don't know who Max Blumenthal is? They don't have. Why wouldn't they have? But by the way, just so you beyond a doubt, you know that they're not honest actors, and they're dealing from the bottom of the deck over at MSNBC and CNN. Why wouldn't they have on anybody who was a skeptic of Russiagate, who had counter narrative?
Well, you can't break the neoliberal message.
Right? The last time Glenn Greenwald was on MSNBC was like the December of 2016. And so all through Russiagate, they didn't bring on Aaron Matei, who won an award for his work. I guess they don't know who Bill Binney is, who could talk about the leak. He was the #1 code breaker at the NSA. Smartest guy who ever worked at the NSA. Mm-hmm. FBI tried to frame him. He's so smart, he outsmarted them. Right. They tried to put him in jail. He beat them. That's how smart he is. MSNBC doesn't know who he is. How do I know who he is? They know who John Kiriakou is. He also helped debunk it. They know who the people are, the veterans, the VIPs, Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. I know who they are. I'm sure Chris Hayes knows who they are. Never has them on. Never has anybody on with a counter narrative. Those people are beards of the military-industrial complex.
Or these are people who want to give information like Snowden or Assange or Manning and let the American people know what's really happening with our government. When they share information out, all of a sudden they're deemed targets and threats. And already Snowden, he's in Russia. You have Assange, and who knows what's going to happen to him. Or even Chelsea Manning, who knows what's going to happen to her as well. So I think as a final note, what do we do to really ensure that people are still informed, that there's still independent media? What will it really take for people to ensure that we're not under this oligarchy anymore, which is what we have?
Yeah, I don't. I think people's lives are going to dictate their activism, right? Mm-hmm. I think that people are sick and tired of going broke over healthcare. Right. People are tired of the biggest, there isn't affordable housing in our cities. People are being squeezed everywhere. It's an economy that extracts wealth from the workers and funnels it upward, right? So it isn't trickle down. It's suck up. I don't know what you call it, but people are waking up to that because their lives. Hey, it's like, hey, this system isn't wicked. What I like to say on my show is, what do you call a system that takes the richest country in the world and renders 80% of its workers living paycheck to paycheck, 30 million of its citizens without health care? What do you call that? You call that a failed system. It's not a, so we need a new, so I think people are, that's why, quote unquote socialism is, but it's not, when they talk about socialism in America, they don't talk about workers owning the means of production. Right. They just mean that there'd be some programs that are there to cushion the blow of the brutalities of capitalism, right? Like education and healthcare. And they know if they give people healthcare, it's going to be harder for capitalists to manipulate them, right? And then people will also, like in France, that's why I think the yellow vests are doing so well. They have healthcare.
They're able to at least ensure that in case there's one bad day, they're not homeless on the streets like here in the United States.
That's exactly right. And they have healthcare. They have what they call it included college. We call it free college. They said no. They call it included. Our healthcare is not free. It's included. Right. Included in our taxes. It's not free. They know it's not free. It's included. But over here, they're like, oh, we want everything for free. No, we fund the shit that we are paying for. I just don't want my money going to a goddamn $700 billion Defense Department, right?
Or we make a joint strike fighter that doesn't fly at night,
That's
or a
right.
$200 million drone that flies into Iranian airspace and probably shot down by a cheaper rocket missile.
I mean,
if it was shut down.
Chris Hedges wrote a book called America: The Farewell Tour, and he documents, this is late stage capitalism, man. It's eating itself, it's letting its infrastructure crumble, and it's building jails. It's impoverishing you if you want to get an education. I mean, we have a really broken system, and the system really needed a guy like Barack Obama to fucking put a happy face on the horrible shit it was doing. And now they got a guy like Trump who puts a horrible face on the horrible shit they're doing, which they are all doing under Obama too. And that's why they want to get rid of him, right? As Aaron Matei said, they don't see him as a suitable steward of the empire.
Right. But see, he inherited the system. He
Yes.
created it.
That's what I said. Trump didn't take us from 2 wars to 7. Trump didn't start Iraq. Trump didn't make 30 million people not have health care and the rest of us trading water 80%. That was already happening. That's why Trump got elected.
And people assumed that he was going to do the same thing, but it didn't happen.
Right. Well, people thought he might do something. He didn't.
Well, on a rare level, perhaps he made more people aware just how messed up the system
Yes,
is.
so now people are aware.
Which is a rare caveat for saying something positive about Trump, even though he's still...
Well, the silver lining is that people are now hyper aware of what their government's doing, I think. I think even more aware. They still think the Democrats are the antidote to the problem, and that's the bigger problem.
Right.
That they think, well, if we all just vote blue, it'll help. So we all just voted blue. Nancy Pelosi just... How many times did they roll over for the Mitch McConnell and the Republicans? And Trump, ultimately.
More times than one.
Right.
So I think as a final note...
And who is she in a fight with? She's not in a fight with Mitch McConnell over that border bill. She's in a fight with the progressives.
Yeah, starting a fight with AOC, Ilhan Omar, and the other progressives who...
Yes.
She says are few in number, and she turns a blind eye.
Yeah, she goes, it's like 4 people. No, 40% of your caucus voted against that bill.
Mm-hmm.
You had to go get Republicans. You had to go get conservatives to support your legislation, Nancy.
Right. So I think it's a final note for our viewers and subscribers, since you're doing this whole nationwide tour, everyone's, Tally Hall was already packed up. I think for our viewers and subscribers, if they want to see your next show, where can they go and find you online? And also, I think for our viewers, especially for our Chicagoland viewers, will you do another show here in the city? You said so last night.
Yeah, so we should come back, in like 6 months, we'll probably come back. We did that in Portland. We went back in 6 months. So, it's, I'm really... shocked, right? That people are hungry for this, right? And there's nowhere else to get this, right? So I feel real lucky that I have the audience I have, because I've watched a lot of comedians get famous, and some of them, unfortunately, the audiences that they attract are people they wouldn't want to talk to. Right? I'm lucky that the audience that I attract are people I love talking to. I can't wait to meet them after a show. They all have such fantastic stories. Lots of them are veterans.
I myself am a veteran.
Oh, so I had a guy last night said he was in Fallujah, and what the show means to him. And I'm always blown away when people say that my show is meaningful to them. It's just like, it's very humbling, and I'm really overwhelmed. And so it's just been a crazy ride right now.
All right, so then where can we find...
JimmyDoreComedy.com is my website.
All right, fantastic note. Jimmy
Hi,
Dore,
buddy.
Thank you so much for joining Hard Lens Media. This is Kit. Peace, everyone. Let's all do what we can to build a better future. Hey, everyone. Did you like that video? Well, guess what? You can hit the subscribe button, hit that ring bell notification, so that way you're updated when we upload new content to our YouTube channel.